The moment that hit me the hardest in Sentence to be a Hero isn't a big fight. It's the goddess smiling at Xylo right before she is killed by her own knight. She isn't panicking, she isn't angry, she just accepts it. The music is calm, her expression is calm, and somehow that makes it worse. She has to die, not because she failed, but because staying alive would mean becoming corrupted. That moment feels wrong but necessary. And once you understand that, the rest of the show starts to make sense. Especially why, after such a strong first episode, the story seems to slow down, repeats itself, and almost refuse to escalate. Because Sentence to be a Hero isn't really about becoming a hero, it's about surviving a system that doesn't want heroes to last. Episode 1 of Sentence to be a Hero feels strong because it immediately tells you what kind of story this is, and it doesn't waste time softening it. Right away, Xylo isn't introduced as a chosen hero or a rising figure, he's introduced as a criminal, someone already sentenced, already condemned, and already expected to fight and die. The first mission makes the rules clear almost instantly. The heroes are thrown into a losing situation. Civilians are caught in the middle, and command decisions are made far above them. And most importantly, death isn't framed as an escape. Being a hero here isn't about winning, it's about being used until you can't be anymore. Episode 1 also introduces the goddess relationship in a very specific way. The goddess isn't a symbol of hope or reassurance, she's a resource, a last resort, something powerful but dangerous to rely on. That's why the emotional center of the episode isn't the battle itself, but the memory of what happens when a goddess is pushed too far. The image of a goddess smiling calmly before being killed by her own knight isn't like a dramatic twist. It's framed almost like a rule, a reminder that even gods are disposable in this system, and that sometimes dying is the only way to avoid becoming something worse, right? Not becoming corrupt. When you put all of that together, episode 1 feels complete not because it answers every question, but because it establishes the tone, the limits, and the cost of this world all at once. The action works, the music works, the storytelling works, everything pulls its weight. And by the end of the episode, you understand exactly what kind of punishment being a hero really is, before the show ever has to repeat it. After episode 1 lays out the rules, episodes 2 through 4 show what living under those rules actually looks like. Each episode sends Xylo and the panel hero unit into a new mission. Episode 2 drops them into another dangerous operation, a different location, a different threat, but the same expectation. Go in, hold the line, and don't expect to come back intact. New faces like Norgale are introduced, expanding the unit, not as a reward, but as reinforcement. More people to send in, more people to lose. Episode 3 escalates the danger again. The enemies are stronger, the situation is worse, and the fights push the unit right to the edge. And once again, the goddess only intervenes when everything is already about to collapse. Civilians are saved, the mission technically succeeds, but nothing about the outcome feels like a victory. Then episode 4 moves the heroes yet again. this time to a fortress they are ordered to hold, with the quiet understanding that survival isn't expected. Well, quiet. They basically say it out loud, right? The setting changes, the scale changes, but the role of the heroes doesn't. Across these episodes, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. A threat appears, the unit is deployed, civilians need protection, command decisions are made far above the heroes' heads. And the goddess steps in only at the last possible moment, not to turn the tide permanently, but to keep the situation from completely falling apart. Watching this play out again and again is what makes episode 2 through 4 start to feel routine. Not because the show runs out of ideas, but because the heroes themselves are trapped in a role that never changes. They aren't sent out to win decisively, they are sent out to endure. Each mission resets the board, the world is saved just enough, and the heroes are immediately prepared to be used again. By the time the story reaches the fortress in episode 4, the message is clear. This system doesn't need heroes who grow or change. It needs heroes who can be deployed, trained, and replaced. Different battlefield, same role. And once you see that, the repetition stops feeling accidental. It starts to feel like the point. By the time we reach episodes 3 and 4, something important becomes clear. The routine doesn't push these characters toward growth or redemption, it forces them to adapt. Xylo is the clearest example of this. He doesn't act like someone trying to become a better hero or prove himself to anyone. He acts like someone who already knows what happens when power is overused. In episode 1, Xylo tells us that the previous goddess he was bonded to had already lost all of her power before she died. That detail quietly reframes everything that comes after, because across episodes 2 through 4, Theorita's power is treated as a last resort. She isn't unleashed early to secure an easy win, she's held back by Xylo until the situation is already on the brink of collapse. Xylo isn't chasing victory, he's managing damage. He's fighting in a way that prioritizes survival, not just his own, but hers. And that same survival first mindset shows up in the rest of the unit. Norgallier is introduced as someone with overwhelming presence. Even after being sentenced, he still carries himself like a king. But when his leg is trapped during battle, there is no dramatic hesitation. He cuts it off immediately. Not for honor, not for glory, just because stopping would mean death, and death doesn't end the sentence. Venetim adapts in a different way. We learn that he wasn't sentenced for a real crime at all, but for a text he wrote when he was younger. His punishment isn't about justice, it's about convenience. Instead of breaking under that, Venetim leans into what he's good at. He lies, he manipulates, he talks his way through situations the system itself can't control. None of these characters are becoming heroes in the traditional sense. They aren't being rewarded for bravery, they aren't being guided toward redemption. They are learning how to survive inside a role that was never meant to be fair. Sent from one battlefield to the next, disposable the moment they arrive, with decisions always being made above them. Different people, different coping strategies, same sentence. And that's where the weight of the story really starts to settle in, because the system doesn't just use these heroes, it shapes who they are allowed to become, not by helping them grow, but by teaching them exactly how much of themselves they can afford to lose and still keep going. By the end of the fourth episode, Sentenced to be a Hero still hasn't given us a rebellion, a revelation, or a way out. And that's the point. Episode 1 shows us the rules of the world clearly: who holds power, who gets punished, and what being a hero actually costs. Episode 2 through 4 don't escalate those ideas, they reinforce them. The missions keep coming, the locations change, the threats rotate, but the heroes are always deployed the same way: sent in late, expected to endure, and treated as expendable once the immediate problem is solved. Over time, heroism stops feeling like a role you grow into, it starts feeling like a job you are trapped in. Xylo doesn't fight for recognition, Norgaye doesn't sacrifice himself for glory, Venetim doesn't survive by being virtuous. Each of them adapts in their own way, not to change the system, but to last a little longer inside it. And that's why being sentenced to be a hero feels worse than death in this world. Death would at least be final. Survival just resets the cycle and sends you back out again. So, right now, this story isn't asking whether the system can be overthrown, it's asking something quieter and heavier. How long can someone keep doing the right thing when it never leads anywhere, when no one thanks them, and when being a hero isn't an honor but a sentence with no end in sight?